Welcome to the Post-Pandemic Freedom Show, brought to you by Bold Molders. I'm Dr. Wayne Buchanan, and with me is...
Joshua Shafran, and I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, it's always good to get together and have these chats.
I'm
So,
enjoying it.
last time we were talking about... We continued the thought of the three blind spots, which I'm going to quiz myself in a minute, and then we got into the known and unknown and the combination of those things. And I think today we're going to bring those together, correct?
Yeah, we also talked about the things that you know that you don't know, and the things that the known knowns, and the things that you know that you don't know,
Hmm.
and then the unknown unknowns, which is where all of the potential lies for us. And what I really would I think is valuable is to see how all of that comes together between the blind spots and how it fits inside of the unknown unknowns and why we're struggling and the different things of that fashion. So, um,
Okay.
what do you want to quiz yourself first or
Sure. Let's do that, and then we can, or maybe while you're going over to the slides, because I know you've got those queued up. So, blind spot one is about where we have set as what we want, the outcomes, the goals, what it is that we think we want in life. And the blind spot related to that is that it's not necessarily things that we've chosen. It's stuff that's become unconscious conditioning and just shown
yeah,
up in our...
why do we want what we want, and did we is it something that we would choose consciously again? If it is, great, but oftentimes why we want something or what we've chosen is not of our own making.
Okay.
And generally speaking, as we get older and we have more weight on ourselves, it is those things that we allow ourselves to look for are more limited.
Hmm.
That we stop dreaming as big. We start saying, well, if I could just do this, then I'd be happy, rather than really going for something big, huge that would turn us inside out. We start to settle, and that becomes a part of the status quo. And of course, the status quo looks different for everybody, but we know when we're settling. We know when we're selling out on our own dreams and what that looks like for us. And all we have to answer to is ourselves. Unfortunately, this blind spot makes us uh, blind to the fact that we're not that we think we have to answer to everything on the outside world. We think we have to live up to everybody else's expectations, what it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to look, all of those things. And so that's all encompassed in that first blind spot.
Okay. And you had a phrasing that you used this time that I hadn't heard before that really jumped out at me as a really good summary is why do we want what we want sort of approach here. Like, oh, wait, where did this come from? This thing that I say I want, is it
Yeah,
really what I want or is it what somebody else has wanted and I picked up on that?
right,
So,
right.
okay. So that's
Yeah,
the first blind spot.
and that
Second,
ties into the second one too, by the way. What you
yeah.
just summarized there ties into really all the blind spots.
Okay. So blind spot two, and then you can unpack after I do my quiz what you mean by how that idea ties in there.
Okay.
'Cause I'm not seeing it yet, and I believe you that it is there. I don't want to hear it, but I also want a quiz first. So, second blind spot is where I currently am, and the fact that I may be either lying to myself or delusioned or just inaccurate in my assessment of where I'm at. And so that blind spot is the difference between where I say I'm at and where I actually am at.
Right. Where I am perceiving that I'm at, where I'm interpreting and it's usually a misinterpretation. Have you ever had an experience where you were absolutely positive that something was the way it was? I was just thinking about this morning. There was a time where my uncle, I must have been about, I don't know, maybe 11, 12 years old. And my uncle was working on a motorcycle to try to get it up and running and working again. And I didn't know much about working on anything mechanical at the times, but I was eager to learn because I was eager to ride on the back of it when he got it running again. And I I said to him, like there was something with the carburetor or the choke or something, and I was positive that the gas was turned to a certain thing. And I said, I remember, I've got a great memory. I know for a fact, I'm absolutely 100% sure that this was the way that I was saying it was. And so, but he decided that he wanted to check on it again. And sure enough, I totally misremembered it as to something that had no bearing whatsoever. So that's one thing. And then, I mean, what he said to me is that's exact when you're so sure of something that you are unwilling to look at it, then you get blinders on. And that really stuck with me, obviously, since, that was, I was 10 years old. So that was 45 years ago that I went through that experience. So it's like that. But the thing is that when we get stuck in our what we perceive to be absolute truth, absolute reality, and we're unwilling to look at anything else, that's what keeps us stuck, because we're going for something, whether we're going for big goals or whether we're going for those smaller goals that whatever it is, but we're frustrated. The reason we're frustrated is that we're stuck in that no man's land. We're doing a lot of energy, but what we're where we're starting from or what we're working with is completely different than what it is. And in a future episode, when we get into the zero factor stuff, and that's when it'll start to become really crystal clear what we're talking about here, and just coming at it from a different angle.
Okay,
So
so blind spot 1 is where we think we want to go. Blind spot 2 is where we think we are. And then blind spot 3, you gave me some hints as you were talking there, reminders, is the difference between where we've set out to be and where we really could be and are called to be, and without any emotional stigma ought to be, right? Just like, oh, look, you could be way out here doing these spectacular things rather than settling for this much
right,
narrower version of outcomes.
yes, for sure. And the thing that just gives me goosebumps, and I mean literally I got full body chills thinking about it, is that we are capable of so much more. The possibilities are so much greater than we allow ourselves to even wrap our brain around. And there's another quote or cliche, whatever, that we're not scared of being too little. We're scared of our greatness, of who, the potential. And that's so true, because we're capable of so many more things, but we've limited ourselves because of that first blind spot, and the conditioning and that we've lived with, that we've stopped dreaming. We've neutered our vision. We've neutered our dreams, because it hurts to have hope and then have those hopes dashed. But it's the act of being fearful of having the being burned again and being hurt again that's actually causing us to stay stuck and frustrated and overwhelmed, and all of the things that we're dealing with in the post-pandemic world that we're struggling with. And again, this is why it's so much more pronounced, because all of these things are becoming more in our face without us. We can't ignore it as well as we could before the pandemic. So all of these three major areas of blind spots are coming back to roost, so to speak.
And you said that these layer in with the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns. Do you want to show us that?
Yeah,
Because
love
I
to.
want the visual on that.
Okay,
I know we've talked around the edges of that before, so
I'm happy to. And one thing that I just want to point out here is, notice the continued making the unconscious conscious. That's Jung's quote of, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life and you'll call it fate. And at the end of the day, living the life that you want to live, making the impact that you want to make, going for those big, unprecedented, bigger future type goals, the bold molder goals that you're capable of, embracing those bigger things that are so much more possibilities for you. At the end of the day, everything comes down to getting the right tools and resources and developing those capabilities and abilities to be able to, on your terms, see what was once unconscious and make that unconscious conscious. So at the end of the day, it's really as complicated as that and as simple as that. And everything that we're working on, whether it's from the NLP side or personal development side, is to help us, or hypnosis side, whatever, or my unique approach to these things are to do just that, to give you the tools and resources to build those capabilities and to gain mastery over making the unconscious conscious. So while it's continued now in this realm, I think that what we're going to wind up with is every single episode, every single resource, every single time relates to this in some way, shape, form, or another until you gain mastery over it and until you can condition yourself with intention that you consciously chose. The goal is to make the choices, to make it a habit that you don't have to think about anymore, just like breathing, talking, walking, assuming that you can do all those things without conscious effort these days, is to be able to pick what you want to condition into yourself and make it unconscious again, but because of the awareness that you've now done it with conscious intent behind it. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right, so here's an overlay of everything, and I'll zoom in on it. But the two major concepts that we were talking about, these are the three areas where the blue or the purplish area, and we know it's always constantly expanding and it's going out here. This is the Z, the things that we don't even know that we don't know. Then within this, it's the this area here and this area here. Then we've got the next one down, which is the Ys, or the known unknowns, the things that we know that we don't know. And then we've got right here in the center the things that we know that we know, or that we believe that we know, or our current interpretation. And now let's zoom in. Is there anything before we do that that you want to ask, cover, bring out clearer?
No, I'm just going. I want to have those goalposts. Let's make sure that my understanding of the three blind spots actually lines up with what we got drawn here. I think I got what I got.
Okay, so let's zoom in here, and I'm going to look at the thing, make sure that it's really there. So tell me what you think of the, and I'll draw it in based upon what you tell me.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that the just to the right of that center dot is where it says Fred's filtered future goals. That's where blind spot 1 shows up.
This right here?
Yeah.
Yep. That's number 1.
Okay. And then going on the other side of that central dot, we've got the similar white line, but going over to that green cluster of lines. So that's where blind spot 2 is, going between Fred's filtered truth and of our current reality and that conscious, unfiltered awareness of current situation, the objective reality, where we're really at.
Right, right. So, and then the third blind spot?
That's going to be between number 1 and the green on the right, if I am correct.
Yep.
Between your filtered future goals and that bold molder goal vision.
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
So that's the overlay.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about this in conjunction with the known unknowns, because what I call Fred stories, these are Fred filtered goals right here. What we believe is we're capable of, that's what's going on because of our past experiences, because of the circumstances of our life. We've settled for a whole lot less over here. In between where we think we are and where we think we want to get to is our known zone, or our comfort zone, or the zone of what we believe to be familiar, and a little bit of the unknown or the known unknowns, the things that we know that we don't know. And
Mhm.
so, in theory, it should be really easy to go from where we believe we are to where we believe that we want to get to. It should be real easy. In fact, that's why it's more frustrating for us, because we don't know why we're not there yet, right? Because we know that
Mhm.
we're capable of, I mean, because it's only a little bit outside of our comfort zone on either side. It's only a little bit different, and it's only a little bit into the things, but it's even, we're comfortable in the stuff that we know that we haven't yet learned about whatever, right? So
Mhm.
we're okay stretching a little bit here and a little bit here. And everything in between here, by the way, is still known as the status quo. So it's still plus or minus. You're going to get what you've always gotten, plus or minus a little bit. And the plus or minus is right here. Plus or minus, plus or minus, in between the two, right? Because you're just willing to dip your feet a little bit into stuff that you don't know that you don't know. You're willing to feel a little uncomfortable or a little stupid, but it's because it's in service of a greater good, and it's going to help you get here. The problem is, as we discussed in a previous episode, is that we're doing a lot of this. We're doing a lot of back and forth, a lot of all of this. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And we're working really, really hard. And each time we do this and we don't get the results, and we're wandering around in here and we're pissed off, or we're upset, or we're overwhelmed, or whatever our pattern is for us, is that it adds more weight to the stories. And now we make up a new story about why we're here. See, I'm just not destined to be able to do this. I'm just not smart enough. I'm just not good enough, or whatever is the particular story or pattern that we have on that topic. We enhance it and we drive it further deeper into our unconsciousness, and we condition it, but it's conditioned in a negative way that is not serving us, that's not bringing us any closer to where we want to be, because we have yet to go out here and venture into these areas. That is really scary, because it's in the area of the unknown unknowns, and it's real scary over here because we don't even know that it scares the shit out of us, because we really could be doing so much more, and we sense that, and then we run and hide from it because we want to go back to at least the stuff that we know that we don't know, right?
Mhm.
And we want to live here because it's comfortable. But not only it's comfortable, I don't like necessarily the cliche of comfort zone so much as it's what you're familiar with, what you've grown accustomed to. And as we also talked about in a previous episode, we've gotten real good at tolerating stuff. We've numbed ourselves out. We've gotten really good calluses so that we can tolerate being stuck here. We can tolerate the back and forth. We can tolerate going, all the zigzagging and the tic-tacking and all of this extra energy. We can tolerate it because we throw our hands up and we go, that's just the way it is. I don't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, what's coming up for me is that looking at blind spot one kind of feels like meh. Okay, great. It's good to do that personally, to say, am I really setting these goals? Are they mine or not? Right. So it's more releasing things that aren't mine. But for me, the meat seems to be closing that gap for blind spot number two. Like, I have to expand the known, and get much better at unfiltering through Fred or whomever, all these other filters that are going on, that, and all the way back to the making that unconscious conscious.
Well, and
So
that's where the unconscious lives, right here in the
yeah.
light purple circle. All of this is the unconscious. We're unconsciously aware of it. Now, some of it serves us, like over here, and brings us over. But the goal of all of this is to expand out the zone
Hmm.
into filtering it into here, and so that this grows bigger. But notice that every time you expand it, so does this one grows bigger, this
Hmm.
one grows bigger, this one grows bigger. So you're growing, you're expanding, but there's always going to be elements as you expand that are, because it's going to expand with you, unless you have already been to where you want to go, it's going to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so is this going to always be expanding, right? So all of this is going to expand because the universe is always expanding. It's never constrictive. It's always expanding and growing. If you try to stay still, which is what we're trying to do when we stay in this area here and we get, stuck in that zone, then everything's expanding around us, and by definition then we're moving backwards because we're trying to say to the universe that's expanding, we're trying to say to all of this, no, I'm going to hold all of this and I'm going to make you static in this one spot. And it's impossible to do. We're not that strong.
Yeah, I'm gonna build this snowman and protect it through the summer. Like, no, that's not how that works. Okay, so the other thing that came up for me is this visual of everything from number one to the right. Like number one, blind spot number one is really, am I climbing the right mountain? Like, yay, I chose this mountain rather than somebody saying you should go up that mountain. Really? Okay. Um, but I see this whole set of mountain ranges off into the clouds that are beyond that first mountain that I chose to climb. And so I can hear, right, this idea that you're never really gaining ground. Like, that's one way we can interpret everything expanding. Like, even if I expand my knowns and known unknowns, like, I can make those inner circles bigger. But am I really gaining if the whole thing's expanding and there's still all that stuff out there that I don't even know I don't know? I think that the exciting part for me is going, with the word no showing up again, the idea that no, that just really means there's so much more to explore and there are adventures to be had that I haven't even come up with that are going to be so much bigger and better than what I can see when I look at blind spot number one.
For sure. For sure. There's no question about it. The problem with this metaphor, where this metaphor breaks down, is that it implies a linear journey from point
Mm-hmm.
A to point B. So the first question, and I love it because I love that you said this phrase because I use this exact thing. Am I climbing the right mountain? That is the key to it, and you know that you're climbing the right mountain if it's right for you. If the act of climbing is fulfilling, if you're
Mm-hmm.
a part of it, but it is not this linear journey of moving from this point to this point and then you're done. It's a 3D 4D holographic universe of the ecosystem is constantly moving and expanding. So don't get into the habit of just thinking about this as bad and this is good, or I'm moving from this point to this point, or
Mm-hmm.
this is the summit of the right mountain over here. Because as you do this, who you become in the journey of doing this is what informs which new mountains you're going to go to, what you're going to create, where it's going to go, what you're going to see as new possibilities that you couldn't see when, once you get beyond this and you get just to the outer edge of this, for example, you're going to see all sorts of new possibilities that you couldn't see before that are going to give you the hope and the ability to be able to create things in a brand new way. And that is in it of itself extremely gratifying, extremely fulfilling, and you're honoring yourself by making that journey, by going through it. So in the previous episode where you talked about this being a lot of work going from here to here,
Yeah,
um,
but it's worth it.
yeah, but it's worth it. Still implies it's drudgery.
No, sure. And that's an interesting projection. Not all of it is drudgery, even when it's hard work, right? I'm gonna go ice skating later, and I'm gonna put in the work. I'm gonna love every second of it, and it's not any less work. In fact, I'm gonna be doing more work out on the ice than most other people are, but I love it. And so, yeah, drudgery, as
Well,
long
to
as
me,
other people are
the
unpacking
work.
those separately too.
I mean,
Yeah.
do I get tired when I'm doing that? When I'm doing this work, when I'm going from here to here? Yes, I get tired, but the
Hmm.
act of doing it fills me with energy and excitement and optimism. And the act of doing it, even though I might get wiped out, I can go for a
Hmm.
much longer time going on this journey
Yeah.
and tic tacking my way across that than I can when I'm stuck in, the
Yeah.
drudgery of the status quo, and just not really challenging myself and staying like that. To me is just
Some
like,
people like running on the treadmill. Not my thing. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The
and I
other
don't
fun
mean
thing.
to put it in terms of like, project my stuff onto you, but there's an element that when people look at this, what I feel, and maybe it is a projection on my part, but what I feel when you talk about this being like a lot of work,
Hmm.
and oh my God, it's a lot of work. I don't want to do that, but I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. Like when you're stuck there, is that there's still judgment about like I'm not making enough progress fast enough, and I'm
Hmm.
not where I should be because by now, and all of that, all of the stories that are doing that. And that's the stuff that I don't believe is serving us when we have those conversations with ourselves. So that's when I try to reframe that conversation. And the instant that I see this for what it is, that it's not good or bad, the spot between the second blind spot is not good or bad, says nothing about
Hmm.
me. So therefore, it's not a lot of work. It's not, I mean, unless I say it is, it doesn't mean anything. And so I could very easily then replace that once I truly see it for what it is, and I see it for the objective reality and I'm interpreting it from, at least from my position, as accurately as I can, and I can see that as truthfully without the juice, without attachment, without putting anything on it and have it define me, or have it say something, or
Hmm.
having it to have it look a certain way, because the thing that we get stuck with is that we get so attached to our identity being that we are here, that we're unwilling to see the truth. And the same thing, we get so attached to, this is what I've got to have happen, and it's got to look a certain way, it's got to perform in a certain way. So the way that it wound up being is that if it wasn't what it was determined to be, that in my head, then it was everything else sucked. And it wasn't like the experience couldn't be like, well, wait a minute,
It's even
it was
better,
different, it
right?
didn't look, but
Yeah.
could it be even better? Nope, because I'm
Yeah.
so attached to it looking a certain way.
Yep.
And
There's a
so
phrase
anyway,
that a phrase that I love from the NLP side of thing: disappointment requires adequate planning.
yeah, yeah, I love it. I've not heard that before, but I love it too. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So the drawing you got right now with the extra lines is really nice because it points out that if you think you're starting at that left white line, just outside the known zone, and are so focused on, I got to go towards the white line on the right, right? I'm crossing that known zone. That's all the focus is going that direction, which we got to get everything mirrored, right? That direction. you you potentially fall into the trap of anything that's actually that blue line that goes across the way that you, right, we want to go this way automatically, but if we realize no, there is, the first step is going from where we think we are to where we really are, and so that first leg of the journey is going in what feels like the exact opposite way of where we really want to be going.
And really, what it is it's pushing you in further into the area of
Mhm.
the known unknowns, and then really into this the
Mhm.
skinny branches of being scared shitless. That I'm out here, and man, this is really uncomfortable. I don't know how gravity operates here. I don't know what the rules are. I
Yeah.
don't know what any of this is, and that's scary until
Hmm.
you realize that the reason why it's scary is because we made up a story about it, and we decided to believe that story. We have thoughts about it, we have judgments about it, we have attachments about it having to look a certain way. And that's another thing, is that we get stuck zigzagging back and forth here, and in between the two here, because we believe that where we are is rock solid. We're attached to that looking a certain way and believing a certain way, and we're attached to it, and we're unwilling to have it be anything different, even though it's not serving us necessarily. So we're pinging back and forth like a good game of pong, and we're banging our heads into this, and it's getting old fast because very much aware each time we do that that we're unhappy. We may be accomplishing these goals and we're stacking up the achievements, one after the other, but they're not fulfilling, they're not meaningful, and we're still really, really uptight, pissed off, frustrated, whatever is your pattern. And the more that we do that, the more that we add, and we start beating ourselves up, and we start to reinforce the wrong unconscious conditioning, and it drives it deeper, and it makes it even harder to fight against that stuff. And if you've ever experienced in life where you used to be happy-go-lucky and be able to create the things that you want to create pretty easily, and it was like no big whoop, and then now all of a sudden creating the goals and going for the things that you want to go are getting harder and harder and harder, and you're like, what happened? I used to be able to be accountable, I used to be able to stay focused, I used to be able to, and now all of a sudden I can't. It's because of all of this stuff is built up on us, and we've negatively conditioned the wrong sides of the equation based upon our past experiences. And it's like blowing bubbles on top of bubbles on top of bubbles.
I'm reminded of going on walks outside with the kids, and it's like, ooh, we found a rock. Here, carry this for me. Ooh, I found another rock. Ooh, look, let's take this boulder. I'm like, stop. But eventually you're like, I can't handle anymore. I've got all these rocks. They're not actually mine. They're not actually useful, but I've been carrying them this whole trip. And yeah, it gets harder and harder as you go.
But your kids are like, yoo-hoo!
Yeah,
Because they're
exactly.
free and
Like,
fancy, right? You're carrying all
it's
the weight.
exactly. It's somebody else's burden that I've taken on.
Right.
And so we get better at saying, fine, I'll make a backpack and I'll start carrying all the random rocks in the backpack, forgetting that at the end of the trip, the kids don't
What's
care anymore, or we put them in the bathroom on the sink, or, wherever the rocks end up, because we do have
Or say you
beach
got to
rocks
carry them
on the.
yourself, so make sure that it's really what you want.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that came up here is in the same way that we realized earlier that all of what we're doing is making the unconscious conscious. I wonder if most of the work that we're putting together, and the techniques and all of the support that we've got in place for folks is really closing blind spot 2, and everything else kind of naturally takes over at that point. So that's a thesis. We'll see how that works out over time, but
I think so. And it could be a hierarchy where there's a
yeah.
foundational one that really leads to the other. The reason why I started with one personally in explaining this is that it becomes real easy to talk about that first. Like,
Yes.
because we
Yes.
become very aware of why do I want that? Like, how did I decide that running this race and having to win this race is important to me, and that
Yeah.
it was going to be meaningful to me? How did that happen? And
And I 100% agree that that's low-hanging fruit. That's a beautiful place to start. I wonder if almost all the juice is in closing that gap on blind spot 2. And guess what? Then we can open up, once we've gotten out of that comfort zone or the known zone, and have started peeling off the layers of Fred's stories. I do wonder if the closer we get to where we really are, guess what? It unlocks blind spot 3
well, and
just
I think, I
naturally.
mean, all of this zone right here, which is
Hmm.
by the way, like, this accounts for maybe fractional fraction. I mean, like, point zero zero
Tiniest,
zero zero
tiniest.
zero 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 to infinity, almost
Uh-huh.
one of all that is, right? That's what this. But yet we have because this is us. This is where we live. It's everything to
Mhm.
us, right? But
Mhm.
really, all of it is in here. Whether we're talking about this side of it or this side of it, it's the same, right?
Mhm.
It's the unknown unknowns, unknown unknown. So it's really one blind spot, which is this.
True.
And then everything else gets germinated from that. And a piece of that, if we split it down like in a yin and yang or whatever,
Mhm.
a piece of that is so much more is possible. And a piece of that is
Mhm.
that where we are, how we've been playing, or what we've been defining ourselves as has been so much different than we've been playing such a smaller game. So I mean, if you think about it in terms of this being like not a journey linearly, but like
Mhm.
almost like a zoom in, and we've been playing such a small game, and believing that we're so small here, but this is really who we are and what we're capable of. If we can embrace that, then the reality is that we don't have to stay playing by the rules that have gotten us these results. We can play by the rules over here. We can play by the, it's really all the same stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Very
again,
cool.
being attached to threes, these breaks it down for me in a
Yeah.
logical way. But again, it does imply a linear progression. So I'm just
And
trying
I
to
do
make it
wonder
as
if it's just me projecting what, like, oh, okay, the better I know myself, the rest of the stuff will take care of itself for me personally. And that's my own journey that I'm going, huh, is that true for everybody? I don't know. Let's find out.
well. I mean, know thyself. I think is key. But a piece of know thyself is to recognize the stuff that you don't know, and be
Yep.
okay with that, and redefine your relationship with risk, because
Yeah.
it doesn't have to feel risky to venture here.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to feel risky. It only feels dangerous or risky or whatever we've chosen the words for it because of what we've decided it be. But we can change our relationship with that.
Yeah. Beyond here lies dragons. And then, when we realize the dragons are actually helping us, then it's a whole different beast.
Yeah, or the dragons don't exist. It's something that we made up,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, because we want the conflict or the friction, um,
Yeah.
you know, uh,
Gives us a
and
convenient excuse to play small and not fail big like we might do if we venture out
yeah,
there.
and then there's the other school of thought with, you need contrast, like, with weightlifting. You need to be able to burn your muscles to do the weightlifting, and to rip them apart to be able to regenerate and grow, and have strength training. I suppose there's a certain amount of truth to that, but it doesn't have to be that way for this. You don't have to have conflict, drama, all
Mhm.
of the contrast is not necessary to do that. We've got enough of it already, and the act of unwinding it can serve us.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about that at a future episode.
So, what do we do as action item from looking at this chart? I mean, we kind of already hinted at it, right? Is start looking at those blind spots. If you did the exercise before with the blind spots, go look at your list and think about things from the bigger perspective that we have now, and any of the insights that you had today, just keep applying them back there.
Yeah,
What else comes up for you?
I think to simplify it and chunk it down, based upon what you were saying, like pick one of the three blind spots that resonates for you. In this case, Wayne wants to examine the second one as I've defined it. Now, I'm just
Yeah.
defining it to
Yeah.
chunk it down to make it easier. But so if that resonates with, like, examine that. You don't have to do all of this to take what makes sense for you, but look at it, and ask yourself objectively if you're playing a smaller game, and or how you're playing a smaller game, because I can promise you that we all play a smaller game than we're capable of. As big a game as we may be playing at certain times, and as creative and as powerful as we choose to be, we could always be more, and expand even greater. So for whatever it is for you, without putting judgment on it, just examine that and see, look at it, because the act of just examining it gives you the is that is making the unconscious conscious. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be scary. It doesn't have to be a big whoop. The act of just simply examining it, objectively looking at it, like you're watching yourself in a movie and a past experience. It doesn't have to be a big deal.
And I know that you asked me to write up some of this in that post-pandemic abundance playbook, and so that's another good place people can get in there and do the exercises in there and start to build that muscle of noticing.
For
And
sure.
how are you noticing?
Yeah, I can't recommend it strongly enough. It's a 28-page download from Gumroad. If you go to postpandemicabundance.com, it'll take you right to the Gumroad download area. It's a 28-page report that is, well, besides the actual blueprint and kind of the worksheets that you can follow along with and apply to your specific thing. It's also a fun journey into Wayne's experience from his point of view, and I think you'll find it's a fun read. In addition to giving you the well, a playbook on how to actually step by step put this into living it, because we have to move it from your head into your heart to be able to actually live it, and it's a great reinforcement tool. And every time that we do an episode of this and we talk about making the unconscious conscious, and we go deeper and we go into different tools, and then if you will even just go back to the playbook again,
Hmm.
from that standpoint, I think you'll find that it hits you in completely different ways, in more powerful ways, even though he hasn't snuck in and rewritten it on you. It's the
Not yet.
same report, but I think you'll feel like each time you go through it from it, you've changed, you've grown, you've gone through that expansion. And so it's different for you at that point in time. And well, I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's awesome.
Remember to engage and comments, give us,
Yep.
comments, questions, kudos, get all that
Help
stuff out
form the
there, make
conversation.
sure that we're having that two-way conversation.
Yep,
So, yeah.
for sure. And on that note, wait,